content presented in this podcast is based on real events and may contain graphic descriptions of violence, sensitive topics, and explicit language that may be triggering, offensive, or sensitive subjects to some viewers and listeners. Discretion is advised. The purpose of this podcast is to explore and discuss true crime cases for entertainment and educational purposes only. This podcast does not intend to glorify or sensationalize crime, but rather aims to analyze and understand the complexities of human behavior in the criminal justice system. We encourage listeners to approach this content with empathy, critical thinking, respect for the victims and their families.
Snow fell quietly over Philadelphia on the evening of January 26, 2011, the kind of storm that hushes an entire city. Inside a sixth-floor apartment, 27-year-old schoolteacher Ellen Greenberg was preparing dinner. A normal night in the middle of a winter blizzard, but within an hour, that calm would shatter. When her fiancé Sam Goldberg returned from the gym, he found their door locked from the inside. Moments later, he broke it open, and what he discovered would spark more than a decade of questions, controversy, and heartbreak. Ellen was found in the kitchen, lifeless, a knife buried deep into her chest. 20 stab wounds, 10 to the back of her head and neck, yet somehow the official cause of death was ruled a self-harming event. How could a woman stab herself 20 times, and why did the city so quickly accept such an impossible conclusion? Tonight we're pulling back the layers of the case that has haunted investigators, baffled experts, and devastated one family's faith in justice. Was Ellen Greenberg's death the tragedy of an act of a woman in despair? Or was it the perfect crime, buried beneath snow, silence, and influence? So with that being said, it's time to start the show. Let's hit it. Hi, and welcome to another episode of Mysteries, Mayhem, and Merlot. I'm your host, Winnie Schrader. Yes, I'm doing another just off-camera episode tonight. We are shifting stuff around in our house, so I'm actually moving my studio, so I'm not fully set up yet, so that's why I'm off camera. But I still wanted to do an episode, and a new documentary just came out on Hulu, and it's a 3-part documentary called The Death in Apartment 603. It covers the Ellen Greenberg case. Now, when I first found out about this case, Nancy Grace wrote a book about it, and I was baffled at how they concluded this case and all the questions still left unanswered. So I wanted to kind of bring it to you guys to see what would you guys conclude. If you've watched the documentary, hey, let me know what you think could have happened with Ellen Greenberg. You can email me at mysteriesmayhemandmerlot@gmail.com. But if you haven't, I'm glad that you are tuning in. And make sure you do watch that documentary. It's a fascinating, fascinating documentary. I was blown away by it. But I wanted to kind of break it down and cover it because I want to get your guys' take. So we're going to kind of armchair detective this case together, and maybe we can see who comes up with a different theory, conclusions, who knows. It'd be interesting to see what you guys' thoughts are, but let's go ahead and get started on it. But the evening in January of 2011, Philadelphia school teacher Ellen Greenberg was found dead in her apartment. A 10-inch knife lodged in her chest, 20 stab wounds scattered across her body. She was just 27 years old, a first-grade teacher adored by her students and engaged to be married. What might seem at first glance like an unspeakable tragedy quickly became something more stranger. An enduring mystery that has haunted her family baffled investigators for more than a decade. Now, the case was handled with unsettling swiftness. Police arriving at the Manayunk apartment listened to her fiance's account. He had gone to the gym, returned to find the door latched from the inside, and after forcing his way, he discovered Ellen on the kitchen floor. Now, from the start, officials leaned towards a self harming event, even as Ellen's injuries painted a different story. Now, within days, the medical examiner's office classified her death as a homicide, only to quickly reverse it back to a self harming event weeks later. That ruling never sat right with Ellen's parents, Josh or Sandy Greenberg. How could anyone believe she had stabbed herself? And why was the apartment allowed to be cleaned, personal items removed before thorough forensic investigations ever even took place? For 14 years, the Greenbergs have fought tirelessly to help Ellen's death be re examined. They hired independent forensic experts who insist the wounds are inconsistent with a self harming event. They had filed lawsuits and pressed city officials for answers. They watched in anguish, evidence was mishandled, leads dismissed, and official narratives clashed with the physical facts of their daughter's body. Now, the new three-part documentary, Death in Apartment 603, takes viewers inside the fight through the exclusive interviews, rarely seen crime scene photos, 911 recordings, and testimony from experts. The series retraces the night Ellen died and the controversial decisions that followed. It places Ellen at the center, not just as a victim, but as a vibrant young woman whose life was cut short and whose story demands clarity. Was Ellen Greenberg's death the result of her own hand? Or was it murder obscured by institutional failures and investigative shortcuts? The question lingers with every frame, unresolved, as Ellen's parents continue their crusade to change the official ruling and bring accountability to the case they believe has been mishandled from the start. So let's take a deeper look and see what we can discern from the case and try to understand what really happened in apartment 603. It was January 26, 2011, and Philadelphia was bracing for a snowstorm. The city slowed to a crawl as the storm rolled in. Schools shuttered early, and workers hurried home before the streets became impassable. Among them was 27-year-old Ellen Greenberg, a first grade teacher whose students adored her. She left the academy that afternoon early, texting her fiancé, Sam Goldberg, that she'd be heading back to their apartment. Friends and colleagues later remembered nothing unusual about Ellen that day. She was anxious in the recent months, yes, but never openly despairing, never voicing thoughts of self harm. Her mind was on the upcoming wedding, her job, and, of course, a storm. That afternoon, she grabbed gas for her car, then settled in at home while the snow thickened outside. By late afternoon, Sam decided to fit in a quick workout. So at around 4:45 p.m., he headed down to the apartment's building's gym, leaving Ellen upstairs. Their unit was secure, a sixth-floor apartment that looked over the river. Now, for Sam, it should have been an ordinary half hour. When he returned, however, the front door wouldn't open. The swing bar latch was set from the inside. He knocked. He called Ellen's name, no answer. He tried again, dialing her phone, no response. Growing frustrated, he sent a string of texts. Hello? Open the door. What's going on? His message turned sharper and more impatient. Open the door. You're scaring me. Still, nothing. Minutes passed. Sam began to panic. Convinced something was wrong, he forced the door open. What he found inside was described as chilling, even for a seasoned investigator. Ellen was on the kitchen floor, slumped up against the cabinets. Her clothing was soaked in blood. A 10-inch serrated kitchen knife protruded from her chest, buried to the handle. His words shifted, contradictory, as if he could not or would not settle on one explanation. Around her, crimson stains streaked the counters and floor. Sam's voice shook as he dialed 911. The recording, now played in Death Apartment 603, captures his horror and confusion.
I need a emergency now. I just walked to my apartment. My fiance's on the floor with blood everywhere.
What is the address?
4601 Flat Rock Road. Please come help now.
4601
Flat Rock Road.
Is this a house or apartment?
Oh no! Oh no! It's an apartment.
What apartment number?
Please hurry, please.
Where is she bleeding from?
I don't know. I can't tell.
No, so you have to calm yourself down in order to get you some help.
I'm sorry. I don't know. I'm looking at her right now. I can't see anything. There's nothing broken. She's bleeding. Ellie!
You don't know where she's bleeding from? Can't see where the blood's coming from?
I think her head. I think she hit her head, But it's everywhere.
Okay,
it's everywhere.
Think she might have fallen? Do you know what happened?
She may have slipped. There's blood on the table. Her face is a little purple.
Okay, hold on for rescue for her. Stay on the phone.
Fire Department 842. What's the address? No,
4601 Flat Rock Road. Please hurry.
4601 Flat Rock?
Yes.
What's wrong?
I went downstairs to go work out. I came back up. The door was latched. My fiance's inside. She wasn't answering. So after about a half hour, I decided to break it down. I see her now just on the floor with blood. She's not responding.
Okay, is she breathing? Look at her chest. I need you to calm down, and I need you to look at her chest. It's really.
I really don't think she is.
Listen to me. Someone's on the way. Look at her chest. Is she flat on her back?
She's on her back. So
okay, look at her chest and tell me if it's going up and down, up and down.
I don't see her moving.
Okay, do you know how to do CPR?
I don't.
Okay, I can tell you what to do, okay, until they get there. I want you to keep her flat on her.
God.
Hello?
Yeah, hi, okay.
Are you willing to do CPR with me over the phone until they get there?
I have to, right?
Okay, so get her flat on her back, bare her chest, okay? You want to rip her shirt off. Okay? Kneel down by her side.
Oh, my God. Ellie, please.
Listen, you can't freak out, sir, because you
okay, I'm trying not to. Her shirt won't come off. It's a zipper. Oh, my God. She stabbed herself.
Where?
She fell with a knife. Oh, no, her knife's sticking out.
What?
There's a knife sticking out of her heart.
Oh, she stabbed herself?
I guess so. I don't know where she fell on it. I don't know.
Okay, well, don't touch it.
Okay, so I just let her down. Here now. I mean, what do I do?
No, I mean, you can't. If the knife is in her chest, it's going to be kind of hard for you to do CPR at this time.
Oh, no. Oh, my goodness. Okay.
Police, which operator?
277.
Is someone coming here?
Yes, they are. You said 4601 Flat Rock, right?
Yes.
Okay, someone's on the way. And the knife is still inside?
Wait, so what?
The knife is still inside of her?
Yes, I didn't take it out.
Was it her chest or what area?
It's in her chest. It looks like it's right in her heart.
Okay, someone's on the way out there. Okay, just get.
Oh my God! Oh my God! Okay.
How old is she?
She's 27.
27. And there's no sign of life at all?
No, please don't be. What?
Been turned to her arm and tell me if she responds to pain.
Ellie. She's not. Her hands are still warm. I don't know what that means. But there's blood everywhere.
I know, but you can't. And the knife is still inside of her. How far? Can you see how far it went in?
It looks pretty deep.
Okay.
It looks it's a long knife.
Don't touch anything.
Yeah, don't touch anything. Okay.
I'm not touching anything. I can't believe this though.
So wait, it was just you there with her?
We're the only ones here.
And she ran in the door. You said latched it shut.
No. I went downstairs to work out, and when I came back up, the door was latched. Like it was, it wasn't like it was, it was like locked from the inside, and I'm yelling. So I'm
was
yelling.
Your house broken into?
No.
So there's no sign of a break-in?
No sign of a break-in at all. I mean, there will be when you get here, because I had to break the latch, but to get in.
Okay, 4601 Flat Rock, and this is a house, right?
It's an apartment. Flat Rock apartment.
Okay, that'll help.
Oh my God. All right, thank you. Bye.
Now, Sam's words on that night of January 26, 2011, has been dissected endlessly, both on the 911 call and his subsequent statements to police. Now, on the emergency call, his tone was panicked but scattered. He blurted out things like, "She stabbed herself," and then seconds later, "She fell on a knife." His explanation seemed to shift mid-sentence, as if he was trying to rationalize the impossible. At one point, instead of focus solely on urgency of getting paramedics there, he appeared to press the idea that Ellen's wounds were self-inflicted, something most find implausible first assumptions for a fiancé who just discovered such a grisly scene. When police questioned him afterward, contradictions continued to surface. Initially, he insisted that he had only been gone briefly while working out in the apartment's gym, returning to find the door latched and Ellen unresponsive. But under scrutiny, the timeline wavered. How long had he been actually gone? How forcefully had he had to try to get inside before breaking the door? And why, if he feared for her safety, did his text messages to her sound more annoyed than alarmed? "Hello? Open the door. What is wrong with you?" Investigators also noted how quickly Sam framed Ellen's death as a self-harming event rather than acknowledging the possibility of foul play. When asked by officers how she could have possibly stabbed herself so many times, he repeated in his earlier refrain, "Maybe she fell on the knife, or maybe she did it to herself." These explanations, inconsistent as they are, struck many as an attempt to fit a square peg into a round hole. What stands out is not just the words themselves, but the pattern. A man confronted with a shocking and violent scene, yet instead of expressing confusion or outrage, he just kept circling back to the same improbable explanation that Ellen's brutal bloody end was self-inflicted. When paramedics arrived, it was already too late. Ellen had no pulse. The scene was documented in photographs. The blood spatter on the white cabinets and the knife jutting out of her chest, her lifeless body. Those images, stark and devastating, would later become central to the documentary, forcing viewers to confront the brutality of what investigators quickly called a self-harming event. But Ellen's parents never believed it. 20 stab wounds, 10 to the back of her neck and head, bruises in various stages of healing across her body. No note, no clear explanation, and yet within weeks, the initial homicide ruling from the medical examiner's office was changed to a self-harming event after a private meeting with police. That snowy evening in the quiet apartment of 603, Ellen Greenberg's life ended. But the question about how and why remained as sharp and unyielding as the knife that pierced her chest. From the moment investigators stepped inside Ellen Greenberg's apartment, their mindset was already locked in place. They didn't see a young woman's body as the center of a mystery. They saw what they assumed was a self-harming event. Sam Goldberg's panic statements during the 911 calls, "She stabbed herself. She must have fallen on the knife." The lack of obvious defensive wounds sealed their theory. Instead of a crime scene, they believed that they were standing in the aftermath of a personal tragedy. The decision set off the chain of irreversible mistakes. The apartment wasn't cordoned off with crime scene tape. The evidence wasn't meticulously cataloged or preserved. The knives in the kitchen weren't swabbed for DNA beyond the obvious weapon. Blood patterns and potential fingerprints went undocumented. And within a day, the space where Ellen took her last breath became just another Philadelphia apartment again. Now, on January 27th, Ellen's parents tried to process the unimaginable loss of their only child. And during all this chaos, the building manager handed over the keys to Sam Goldberg's uncle. Now, he walked through the apartment freely, collecting personal belongings, whatever remained that could shed light on Ellen's final moments. Tiny traces of blood, fibers, possible signs of struggle was compromised. Soon after that, the unit was scrubbed clean, and in a span of 24 hours, the chance to gather any critical forensic evidence had been erased. And I'm not sure why the uncle, Sam's uncle, was able to take Ellen's personal belongings as well, including her phone, her laptop, her tablets, any electronics. That kind of seems fishy as well. That stuff should have gone to her parents. Now, then came another blow. On January 28th, the Philadelphia Medical Examiner issued its first ruling. So, this is just 2 days after they have found her dead. Ellen's death was ruled a homicide. For her family, that word homicide offered the only thing that made sense of the dozens of stab wounds, including the 10-inch serrated knife buried deep into her chest. But within weeks, everything shifted. By March 10th, that ruling was quietly changed to a self-harming event with no new investigation, no re-examination of the crime scene, just a reclassification that upended the case. So basically, it was just erase this check in this box and add a check to this box. Now, for Ellen's parents, Joshua and Sandy Greenberg, this reversal was even just more confusing. It was devastating, too. They knew her character, her habits, her fears. And then the idea that Ellen had inflicted 20 stab wounds on herself was just unthinkable. And as they learned more about how her case had been handled, the early assumptions, the lack of preservation, and the inexplicable change in manner of death, they grew convinced of one thing. The system had failed Ellen. Now, still, for the Greenbergs, it isn't about assigning blame, not yet, but about forcing the system to take a truly impartial look, free from early assumptions. They believe that only by changing the manner of death to at least undetermined or homicide can at least give a proper criminal investigation to proceed.
Have you ever felt like something or someone was trying to tell you something? That inner nudge, that quiet whisper from the universe, with intuition sharpened by years of spiritual connection and a deep-rooted gift. Winnie Schrader delivers readings that are compassionate, insightful, and shockingly accurate. Whether you're facing a crossroads healing from heartache, or just curious what the cards reveal, Winnie creates a safe, sacred space to explore your journey. This isn't fortune cookie fluff. This is honest, intuitive guidance from someone who's helped hundreds find clarity, closure, and confidence. If you've been waiting for a sign, this is it. Book your session now at lovelotustarot.com and take control of your journey. That's lovelotustarot.com. Winnie's sessions are personal, powerful, and often life-changing. That's lovelotustarot.com.
Now, in the weeks leading up to the death, Ellen Greenberg's friends and families did notice subtle changes. Once energetic, warm, and meticulous, she began to become withdrawn. Friends described her as quieter than usual, distracted, and almost preoccupied with worries she wouldn't fully share with them. Her unusual spark, the laughter she brought to colleagues' desks, and the joy she radiated in her classroom was muted, replaced with a distant, distracted presence that left those who loved her uneasy. Now, alongside the shifts in her demeanor, there were physical signs of distress. Ellen had bruises in various stages of healing across her arms and body. Some were small, easy to dismiss as minor bumps. Others were more pronounced, and their differing ages suggest that they weren't the result of one single incident. Ellen offered explanations, citing clumsiness or ordinary mishaps. But those who saw her daily suspected there was more to the story, something hidden, something she wasn't saying. Even small symbolic details seemed off. Friends and family noticed that Ellen had stopped wearing her engagement ring. For a woman just months away from marrying the person she loved, it was an unusual choice. Some wondered whether it was an unconscious signal of an unease or tension in her relationship, a quiet sign that something has shifted in the private world of her apartment. To her parents, Josh and Sandy Greenberg, these changes were impossible to reconcile with the idea that their daughter had chosen to end her own life. Her withdrawn behavior, Her unexplained bruises and the missing engagement ring just painted a portrait of someone under pressure, fearful, or facing circumstances that have left her feeling isolated, even with the relationship she once trusted. Now, in the recent years, these details have become central to the Greenbergs' legal and public crusade. They point to the changes in Ellen's personality and her physical state not to assign blame, but to illustrate that her death was inconsistent with a self-harming event. To them, every bruise, every shift in her demeanor, and every unusual decision, like removing her ring, tells a story of a young woman whose life and whose final days deserve a careful and truthful investigation. For instance, saying that the scene didn't look like a struggle. When looking at the space, the incident took place in the kitchen. Well, a knife block was knocked over and many of the knives were scattered on the counter and in the sink. So there wouldn't be a huge mess if it took place in a 4 by 4 foot area. And they didn't even process any of the other knives that came out of the knife block. No DNA, no prints, nothing in the apartment was. No doorknobs, countertops, nothing. Now, one other key thing that has led them deeming this a self-harming event was that the swing lock was latched from the inside. Well, it doesn't take a rocket scientist to know that anything on a hinge can swing freely if it's loose. The own building manager said in the documentary that she has shut doors hard enough that the slam of the door caused it to swing over and latch itself. I've seen it happen in the very hotel rooms that I have stayed in. You know, that swing latch that goes over? You usually see those in hotel rooms and in apartments. So could have someone else slipped in after Sam went down to the gym? I mean, it's a possibility. Who's to say that another tenant didn't knock on the door with the old "I need a cup of sugar" trick and attacked Ellen and ran out of the apartment, slamming the door behind them, causing it to latch? I mean, it is a valid theory. There's always that creepy dude or somebody in that apartment building. There could have been somebody that was watching her the whole time. Who knows? But so is that Sam committed the murder. Ellen had been going through a lot of mental and social stressors that I'm sure impacted the relationship. Maybe that night things got heated and out of hand and out of control, which makes sense as well, right? But what doesn't make sense, no matter what scenario theory you have, that Ellen took her own life. The rate of self-harming events by stabbing results in only 1.5 to 3% of self-harming events. And it's not a common way to off yourself, especially 20 times and in areas that it's hard to reach. Now, some of those wounds were very shallow, which they call hesitation marks, which is consistent with self-stabbing events, but there were many that were very deep and forceful, and that indicates an attack or struggle blocking an attacker or in a hand to keep the knife away from their body. So, like you always see those movies when somebody's got a sword or a knife and they're trying to get to the other guy, and you see that view where the tip of the knife is just about to pierce their cheek. That would be considered like a hesitation mark. So, and usually you would see that if somebody's trying to brace and not let somebody get closer to them. So that could very well mean that's why she has both the deep, forceful wounds and the hesitation marks, because it wasn't just self-harming, it was homicide. Now, the stab wounds on the backside of her neck were not deep and traumatic to cause death, but some of the wounds were deep enough that they nicked the protective sheathing around the spinal cord, which can cause numbness in parts throughout the body. So that would have been her first attempt at hurting herself and know exactly where to cut to cause the numbness. Okay, well, she is a first grade teacher, but I don't think that gives her enough intellectual knowledge to be a neurosurgeon. Then the bruising in the areas of her body in various stages. Now, that doesn't indicate murder, but maybe a secret that Ellen has been hiding from friends and family of an abusive situation she may have been in. Now, I'm speaking from experience, from my past abusive relationship I was in high school. And listening to Ellen's friend discuss Ellen's start to a downhill spiral with depression, avoidance, withdrawal from family and friends, those are clear indications of an abusive and controlled relationship. Some of her friends would ask, "Oh, you got a bruise there." "Oh, yeah, I kind of bumped into a table. I'm fine. I'm fine." And they go through things in these cycles of just kind of blowing things off or making excuses. I did it myself. My ex in high school, he would normally hit me in places where people could not see the bruising. But one time he did hit me in the face and left a black eye. And people ask me, "Oh my gosh, what happened?" And I lied. I said that, "Oh, I got hit by a ball and whatever." And it's not because that you're lying to protect the other person. You're lying because you're ashamed of yourself. And when you watch the documentary, Ellen she was a hopeless romantic. She just wanted to fall in love. And she fell in love. And if Sam was abusing her, I'm sure it wasn't just an overnight thing. It's a progression. I can see this happening in her behavior, especially. She said that it was her job that was stressing her out, that she was falling short on getting report cards done and grading done and homework. And I understand being a teacher is a really tough job, especially first graders. Oh my gosh. But the way she was stressing about her job, and this is a job she sought out for, she wanted to be a teacher. It seems like she was replacing what was going on at home and saying it was her work causing this behavior when in reality it was something else. And that's something else she didn't want people to know about. So that's why I'm leaning more towards that this was a domestic abusive situation. But that is my opinion. But there are homicide theories, which this is what their family believes, and I believe this as well. Now, many experts, including forensic pathologists retained by the Greenbergs, insist that her wounds are more consistent with a homicide, and I agree 100%. Now, the bruises, changes in behaviors, and the fact that she had been cooking at the time, and that's a very other thing, a key thing. She got gas, and then she came home and she was cooking dinner. So I don't think that that would be somebody who was planning to end their life would do. Now, most people who do end their life, it's usually a spur of the moment thing, but it's a triggering thing. A breakup, you lost your job and you're in financial downfall or whatever. But washing blueberries, that's what she was doing. She was making a fruit salad for dinner and she had blueberries in a colander. I don't think that would trigger a self-harming event. Suspicion naturally fell on her fiancé, Sam Goldberg, as he was the one who was the only person with access to the apartment and was the one who discovered her. His reported behavior, sending frustrated texts when she didn't answer the door, later breaking it down the door, then calling police, has been scrutinized. But no physical evidence like blood on Sam, signs of forced entry, or defensive wounds on him tied him directly to her death. Now, when it comes to lack of defensive wounds on him, that could very well make sense because from the looks of it, more than likely she was attacked from behind. So if he's behind her and stabbing her, she's just going to try and grab his hand. I'm not sure how much damage she could do there. I don't know, but the lack of blood on his clothes, unless he changed his clothes, then went back down to the gym and then came back up. I don't know, but to me that doesn't say that he's innocent just because of those factors. No, I've watched too many crime shows, and this was his apartment. He could have easily changed his clothes and then went downstairs and threw him in a garbage somewhere. And when the cops went there and said, "Oh, that she did this to herself," they didn't treat it as a crime scene. So nothing was taken in as evidence. What unsettles her family and supporters the most isn't just the violence of her final moments. It's the way her case was handled after. The evidence points not only to possible homicide, but now also a cover-up. The red flag came quickly. In the days immediately following Ellen's death, a Philadelphia medical examiner ruled the case a homicide. The reasoning was straightforward, though. It's because of her wounds she suffered. There were 20 stab wounds, and then 10 of them in the back of her head and neck, where it's not reasonably self-inflicted. It seemed for a brief moment that investigators could proceed with a criminal case. Then, behind closed doors, everything just changed. After private meetings with officials, law enforcement, and the district attorney's office, the ruling was quickly amended. Suddenly, Ellen's manner of death was no longer a homicide. It became a self-harming event. The explanation given by officials seemed to hinge on convenience rather than science. Ellen was found in a locked apartment with no signs of forced entry. She had no defensive wounds. She had a documented history of anxiety and prescribed psychiatric medication. To investigators, these points formed a tidy narrative. Ellen must have turned her anguish inward. But the forensic experts outside the case, the reasoning was not just flimsy, it was absurd. How could a woman stab herself that many times, including deep and forceful ones, in her back and head? And how could such injuries be reconciled with a self-harming event? One veteran forensic pathologist described the suicide ruling as illogical and scientifically unsound. And that is very profound. For Ellen's parents and many of her supporters, the more logical explanation was that the case had been mishandled, or worse, deliberately steered away from a homicide investigation. Theories began to circulate. Some whispered that someone close to Sam Goldberg, Ellen's fiancé, had ties to city officials or law enforcement. Sam himself was not charged with any crime and has consistently denied any wrongdoing, yet suspicion lingers. He was, after all, the one who discovered Ellen's body and the last person known to see her alive, and the one whose 911 call contained panic but inconsistent statements about what had happened. Still, without a homicide ruling, police had no mandate to dig deeper. No grand jury was convened. No thorough criminal investigation ever took place. Instead, Sam walked away without charges, and Ellen's case was considered closed. Well, at least on paper. To this day, no hard evidence has emerged proving a direct cover-up. Yet the pattern of resistance from city officials has fueled suspicion. Every attempt by the Greenbergs to have the case re-examined has been met with delays, legal maneuvering, or outright dismissals. Even after a 2025 settlement in which the city of Philadelphia agreed to revisit Ellen's case, progress has been slow, frustrating the family, and keeping the truth out of reach. And so the most haunting question remains: why was a homicide ruling based on overwhelming forensic evidence reversed to a self-harming event in a matter of weeks? Well, Sam's career in Philadelphia's television and sports industry put him on the orbit of people with power, money, and connections. If his family had ties in politics, law, or law enforcement, could that explain the stunning reversal in Ellen's case from homicide to a self-harming event? It's a theory that persists, even if it remains unproven. There's no paper trail, no witness testimony, no recorded conversation linking Sam or any family to a cover-up, and yet the very reluctance of city officials to revisit Ellen's death only deepens public suspicion. Every delay, every closed-door decision, every evasive statement that those authorities makes it harder to dismiss the idea that someone somewhere wanted this case to disappear. For the Greenbergs, this resistance feels like confirmation, and it would for me too. Their daughter's life was cut short in a violent, brutal manner, yet instead of answers, they have been given silence, roadblocks, and legal technicalities. To them, the refusal to treat Ellen's death as a homicide isn't just incompetence, it's complicity. Whether Sam Goldberg bears responsibility or whether he's simply a man forever linked to a tragedy he cannot explain, the cloud over him has never lifted. Until Ellen's case is resolved transparently, suspicion, fair or not, will continue to cling to his name. Ellen Greenberg's death remains one of the most baffling and heartbreaking cases in recent memory. 20 stab wounds simply do not align with the narrative of taking your own life. The science doesn't support it, the evidence doesn't support it, and neither does common sense. Whether the truth was buried under bureaucracy, incompetence, or something more sinister, one thing feels undeniable. Ellen did not take her own life. Someone killed her, and somewhere out there, that person has never been accountable. For more than a decade, her parents, Josh and Sandy Greenberg, have refused to give up. They fought for every hearing, every re-examination, every opportunity to have Ellen's case seen for what it truly is, a murder that demands justice. Their love for their daughter has fueled a quiet but powerful war against a system that's determined to look the other way. In the end, justice for Ellen isn't just about one case. It's about trust in our institutions, in our investigators, and the promise that every life deserves the truth. Now, my hope is that the Greenberg family finds the peace and closure that they have been denied far too long, and that someday soon the full story of what happened in that Philadelphia apartment will finally come to light, because Ellen Greenberg deserves nothing less than the truth. So please check out the documentary Death in Apartment 603 on Hulu. I'll put a link for that in today's description. It's a bizarre case, and to know that a medical examiner could just change a manner of death, there's something's this whole case reeks of fish. It's fishy from the get-go. And I really do hope that something comes to light where they can re-examine this case. I don't know how, with all the evidence being gone, but that is just my hope. And not just Ellen's case, but all the cases like that are out there. So, yep, I'll have a link for that documentary so you guys can go over the case. And please email me and let me know what your theory may be, if you're aligned with mine, or if you really think that she did this to herself. I'd love to hear about it. So email me at mysteriesmayhemmerlot@gmail.com. And speaking of documentaries, one just came out that is making its rounds and starting to trend right now. It's called Precarious State. One of our local reporters here in Anchor he's been in Minnesota media forever, is Rick Kupchella. And he did this 1-hour piece on the downfall of Minneapolis-St. Paul and what's happening to the great state of Minnesota. Now, when it comes to politics, I'm very moderate. I'm very middle of the road. I agree with some on the left, some on the right. Usually with the right, it's just more fiscal policy than anything. This documentary, I encourage you to watch it no matter what side of the political coin you fall on, because it's eye-opening. It's a shame what they are doing to Minneapolis-St. Paul. That's the heart of our state. And the crime is out of control. People don't want to go downtown anymore. Attendance to concerts, events have gone down. People are literally fleeing the area that have lived there for ages, generations, because of the overtaking of crime and corruption in Minneapolis, and now it's eking its way over to St. Paul too. But Minneapolis is kind of the epicenter of all this. And it's just a really eye-opening documentary to know what exactly is going on within our government. Our very own Minneapolis-St. Paul City Council says they don't want businesses in there. They want to have it completely socialized. They even say they're all socialist Marxists. They want it all completely government owned, no private business owners in the area. And that's what, I've had Reverend Tim on many of times, and I was just on his show. And that area is predominantly African American. And we're trying to push African Americans to own their own businesses in that area. But the city council doesn't want it. They're socialist Marxists. They don't want it. They've even said it. Meanwhile, businesses that have already established there are moving out because the crime is outrageous. Corporate tax rates in this state are either the highest or one of the highest in the country. Capital gains tax is the highest in the country. Income tax, I mean, it's insane. So businesses are like, why are we paying these exorbitant amount of taxes just for our business not to have any business? We're going to go elsewhere. That's not how you build an economy and build a community. And that's what we've been trying to do in Minneapolis, even before George Floyd, even before COVID. Uptown Minneapolis was hopping, dude. I used to go down to Uptown Minneapolis all the time in the summer when I was in high school. We'd go to all the shops. They had the cutest thrift shops and vintage shops there. And now I won't even drive in my car with the doors locked going down Lake Street. And the city council, Minneapolis City Council, has taken the funding that they need to manage and protect the city of Minneapolis the way the police department needs to do. They have spent hundreds of thousands of dollars on proper training Minneapolis police officers due to the incidences of like George Floyd and Philando Castile. We're trying to make improvements. Nobody's perfect. No government is perfect. But the very people that are telling us that we're the problem won't let us fix it either. I mean, the majority of the Minneapolis City Council is part of the Twin Cities DSA group, which have now even endorsed some more candidates for higher elected offices here in the state of Minnesota. I'll put a link in today's description of what the Twin Cities DSA stands for and their playbook. And you tell me, this is not democracy. This is not democratic. This is not Republican. This is not American. And it's definitely not Minnesota. So thank you guys so much. Please check out the documentary Precarious State. I will put a link for that in today's description as well. Thank you guys so much for another awesome episode, and I hope to see you guys all next week.
Thank you for joining me for another episode of Mysteries, Mayhem, and Merlot. And until our next case, my armchair detectives, stay safe, stay vigilant, and stay aware. I'll see you right here next week on Mysteries, Mayhem, and Merlot.